This is from Unleashed to Unmatched, when to move from Unleashed to Cin7. Today we have three speakers with us. We have Sham, Greg, and Bill. Sham has 10 years of experience helping product sellers streamline operations. His background is in engineering and data automation. He has experience across implementation, customer success, and sales. He's guided thousands of businesses to better inventory solutions, and he's currently the sales manager here at Cin7. Sorry, the senior sales manager here at Cin7. And then Greg is the founder and head of project delivery at TechWeave, which is a partner of Cin7. They have 20 plus years he has 20 plus years in global finance leadership. He's a CPA with deep expertise in ERP implementations and business transformation. He's based out of Australia, and he's going to be one of our expert speakers today. Real quick, before I talk about Bill, I do want to talk about TechWeave. As I said, Greg is the director of TechWeave. TechWeave is an implementation consultancy. They focus on business processes and help to implement change within your tech stack. They work closely with the customer to ensure the change has the maximum impact and best outcome for the business. So they're really business focused. And then today we also have Bill joining us. Bill is the coordination administrator at BHD Storage Solutions. He was able to share with us a little bit about his experience as a customer of Cin7, and he actually was able to transition from Unleashed as his inventory management system to Cin7. So you have a great panel with you today, and we're going to talk through so many things. As we get started, at the bottom of your screen, there should be a Q&A function. Please feel free to submit any questions that you might have. If for some reason we don't answer them during the webinar, we will follow up with you after the webinar via email. So let's go ahead and talk about our agenda. Today, we're going to start with what growing businesses need from inventory software. We'll dive into when and why you should be taking the next step, so moving into a different inventory setup than you currently have. We'll talk about the Great Void and what that mystery looks like. The specifics, so we'll talk about Cin7 versus Unleashed and what that really looks like and what that really means. And then we'll talk about Bill and the BHD storage solutions, and then we'll wrap up with a Q&A. So having said that, Greg, I think you're kicking us off. I've said
Let's
a lot,
try.
So take the wheel.
Yeah, cool. So on this slide, we sort of start to talk about the type of businesses that really fit this space and how those technologies can help businesses wherever they are in that journey. What's really clear when we meet businesses is every business is unique, and every business has their own challenges and their own strategy around growth and where they sit in the market. But underneath all of that is some real consistent needs and requirements to be able to do things like purchase stock, manage inventory, sell, and then sell more and sell as much as they possibly can to that market, and ensure that the customer satisfaction and the customer is happy as they possibly can be, and with the goal of, as much as you can, having that customer always come back, depending on what market you're in. In this small space, depending on where you are in the market, you start with an idea or a simple product or an opportunity, and you're going to grow. And the goal here is, and the discussion for today is really, how do we decide what technology you need where you are? And we're going to cover some of that during the preso today in terms of where you need to be and what your decisions are. Is not necessarily about where you are now, but maybe where you are in the future as well, and where you're going to be next year, and what your expectations of growth are. So these SMB, small and medium businesses, are really clear on trying to find the most efficient way to manage their systems and processes. And like Lauren said, at TechWeave, we're really focused on process first and understanding what those processes are, and then how that's supported by the technology. If you're early stage, you're really focusing on those three key things. We're not so worried about installing KPIs and all of these kinds of high-end business needs. We're really just focused on sales stock and making sure cash is king, and making sure you've got enough to cover you. So as you grow in those businesses grow, obviously your needs will change, and that's where we're heading in the next couple of slides. So yeah, hopefully that helps. Cool. I get to talk about the Great Void. So we heard about the Great Void a few months ago from Josh, who's head of product at Cin7, and I really aligned myself with this slide, or a version of this slide. He really spoke my language in terms of what I see in the market, and where you are in the market is, depending on your size and your revenue, and then this slide sort of starts to unlock a little bit around what types of software are available in the market. So, I mean, just to be really clear, Cin7 and other tech stack like Unleashed, they all provide pretty awesome solutions for what they are, but there are fundamental differences, and those differences we're going to explore with Sham, I think, on the next couple of slides here. So, what's really clear is that in this middle ground, this great void, there's not historically been a lot of great options that take you all the way from that 5 million to beyond. And so, what's really clear, having worked with Cin7 quite a lot over the last year or so, is that they're really committed to filling that void and making sure that their technology matches the greatest group of customers they possibly can. So, yeah, so that's really clear. The other thing that we sort of talk about at TechWeave is we kind of started to talk a little bit about who are our customers and where they sit in the market, and we've sort of come up with three personas that sort of match that. So we sort of talk about the hustling starter, which is the startup business that has an idea. They're starting their inventory control journey. They're trying to have minimal complexity. They're really focused on growing their sales channels, and they're quite basic. And again, like I mentioned just before, cash is king for those sort of guys. So that puts you in that sort of 1 to 5 million potentially revenue. Again, there's not a perfect science to this. The next one we talk about is the growing contender. So where you've expanding your sales, you started to make some moves, you started to grow, you're requiring more stock, you need the ability to manage your inventory a little bit more than you were before. And with that inventory, that's cost and risk to the business. So you need to be really precise on maximizing the reward from that risk. Okay, so yeah, that's that growing contender, which is potentially in that sort of 5 to 15, $20 million business, and maybe up to 25, 30, again, depending on your market. And the last one here is the scaling powerhouse. So optimizing sort of more multi-channel operations, you need more advanced features from your tech stack. And so you start to question whether or not all of that is available to you within the tech stack that you have, and whether or not you need to go invest in other add-ons and other software. And I suppose the unique thing to bring it back around Cin7 is a lot of those options that we see for our customers are on platform. And so to me, as an accountant who it also then obviously then your financial requirements improve and need a lot more insight into where you are. So having all of that on one platform and a single source of truth as you go on that journey and as you grow through that journey is what Cin7 really focuses on. So the last one there is in point 3, which is something that I want to talk about a little bit as well, is in the market historically, everyone wants your business. But what I really want to talk about with Cin7 is there is going to be a time where light ERP or this space of technology of best of breed integrated platforms, you may outgrow it. And I want to talk about graduating from that or celebrating that more than having to move or having to find something better, because where you are in that journey is actually really important. You might find that hopefully if you grow, there is a need to move to something a little bit bigger for transaction volume or complexity of financials or whatever those decisions are. So there is going to come a time for that. But while you're in that growth phase, something like Cin7 allows you to cover more of that range without having to change process too often or making significant changes to your tech stack, because a lot of it is actually within Cin7. So I think let's go to the next slide. Hand over to Sham.
Thanks, Greg. So we'll speak about the ERP Lite. So Greg was speaking about ERP Lite, and we spoke about the Great Void. So the key difference between a full-blown ERP like NetSuite, Dynamics, SAP, are going to be the fact that ERP Lite, Cin7 is going to be playing in this market as ERP Lite because we work with the best in breed across all different solutions. So as a growing business, when we are traveling, the reason for the great void and the reason there is a desire for better solutions over here is purely because there are a lot of systems that are available when you're initially starting up, where they're good to replace not having any systems, working with accounting system, working with plugins that connect your e-commerce platform to accounting software. So similar to the growing business where you're going to go through a journey, you're implementing a first inventory software, you have an inventory software, but it's got some limitations. So you're looking to invest in either an ERP solution or a better inventory system. So that is usually the market that we are going to be playing in. And that's where Cin7 has these solutions as well. So to speak more about it, if we are thinking about a ERP system, a full-blown ERP system, it's usually harder for them to connect over to platforms like Shopify. Like NetSuite, for example, will have their own e-commerce solution. It's easier to connect to them, but when you're looking to connect to Shopify, that becomes harder. And when you're looking to kind of bring in your accounting system and use the ERP for inventory order management, that becomes harder. The implementation time frame, the changes in project, that's going to be needed as your business is growing and adapting into new marketplaces, new regions, and the changing economy altogether with tariffs, landed costs, all of these playing a part. That is really the market, and that is the area where Cin7 is providing a solution. So when would you be considering a ERP Lite? Would usually be when a business is facing these challenges and we are looking to overcome it. We're looking to grow. There's going to be growth in different markets. There's going to be growth in different channels. And we need a system that's going to be agile and happy to work with everyone else in the market. So that's a key consideration when you're thinking about a solution such as Cin7. And yeah, as a broader conversation, not limited to Unleashed alone, one other thing that you'd be considering is the system should be flexible and forgiving for users. As end users of a platform, it is always expected there's going to be some changes required. Bill will speak more to it later when he kind of speaks about his journey from Unleashed over to Cin7. You run into similar limitations with quite a few other solutions in the market. So yeah, that's the whole idea of the best in breed smart integrations where we've got a robust API. It's built to integrate with other platforms in an easy manner. And we've got an entire partner network, similar to Greg, for example, who's going to be helping you with this whole process. So yeah, that's really what I wanted to speak about. It's really bringing all of these business parts, or the moving parts of the businesses together. Now the ERP Lite, the flowchart that we have over there on the right side of the screen, that kind of speaks to what Cin7 solves, all the way starting from purchasing, selling, different fulfillment workflows. If it's internal, if it's hybrid, where it's some of the fulfillment's internal, rest is handled by a 3PL. It speaks to all of these workflows. And obviously, you have more powerful reporting tools and you have a powerful operating system where you don't need access to double data entry, where you're not going to your accounting system, getting back into your ERP system to have a look at where transactions are. So these are all the things that we are aiming to solve. And that is the ERP Lite market. So that's also why we call it as ERP, because ERPs tend to do everything themselves and own the entire process themselves, whereas we don't try to do it. So we are focused on solving one simple problem, which is going to be inventory, and having a centralized order management system that's going to expand any functionality that you don't have in an existing system, or consolidating all of these plugin systems together into one system that speaks to other larger systems. So yeah, we can go to the next slide, Lauren.
So Sham, just before you do, one key thing that we often see with our customer base in TechWeave is, what people are really, really good at is trying to stay on their own platform for as long as possible and introduce as many sort of, I suppose, workarounds or adapt as possible. I suppose that's a better word, is adapt to those processes. I think one key thing here is, as you're starting to consider the move to if you're a smaller business and looking for the time to move to something like an ERP Lite Cin7 Core type system, is it's going to take effort, it's going to take change, and it's going to ruffle some feathers along the way. So people tend to often get frustrated at times because of that change. I'm guilty of it in my career, having built amazing spreadsheets in Excel over my career to mitigate issues and try and become as efficient as I can. But I think the key thing here is establishing best practice early, which Cin7 Core is really good at. Like Cin7's Core it's more about adapting to a real best practice type process as opposed to maintaining your workaround or your bespoke process. And what we often see is people when they create those workarounds, it's a not as easy a transition to jump to something that's a little bit more standardized. So my call out here is invest early, and invest early in trying to get that best practice established. So one thing we often say is we don't want to be reliant on people. We want to be reliant on process. So the more workarounds we have, or the more we're reliant on individuals to run certain parts of our business, the more risk we have. You know, again, if people decide to move on or whatever. But all of this is part of the decision process as to when and where you choose to jump in and take that next step. Yeah, sorry, Sham, I thought that's just something cool that I've been thinking about.
Totally. Yeah, feel free to jump in, Greg, as needed. And yeah, same for Bill as well. So yeah, so this speaks about the similarities and differences. So quite often, Cin7 and Unleashed are going to be in contention for business for the same customers. And Unleashed is a good system. We don't want to say that Unleashed is not a good system. Unleashed is a good system for what it does. And quite often, when a business is looking to get online onto a SaaS platform, there are going to be key features that are needed. So the list of shared features that we have over there are going to be in most cases what a business that's just starting off from spreadsheets or moving away from an accounting system that's connected over to a Shopify directly, that might be all they need. So and that later would be a case where it might create new problems. There's actually two sides to it. Like Bill's experience is moving from NetSuite over to Unleashed and then switching over to Cin7, the whole ERP light journey. So there's two sides to the workflow where you move from an ERP for a set of reasons, and or you're moving on to a SaaS platform for a set of reasons. Now we try to group together under like 5 of the most common areas that we want to speak about. And there's obviously more to it, but we wanted to try to consolidate as much as possible. And I'll speak to each of these in a more granular manner to kind of give a complete story of what's usually going to be expected when you're considering Cin7 2 Unleashed. So I'll first touch on the shared features. So when it comes to inventory, both systems do real-time inventory tracking. They support barcode scanning. Barcode scanning is supported in a limited way, for example, on Unleash, because you wouldn't have like a warehouse management app that's available on Android and iOS. So it's going to be a case where you can barcode scan, but it's going to be within the user interface. If you're looking to go further, then you'll be investing in other tools. Now, when we're speaking about Unleashed, it's also good to speak about the Access Group. Access Group is going to be um, the people that are managing Unleashed, and it's part of a larger portfolio with a collection of different solutions. So that being the reason, moving forward in future, they wouldn't be duplicating the development of what they're planning for Unleashed, because you've already got a MinSoft, which is a warehouse management software. So that's also owned by the Access Group. And MinSoft is designed for larger warehouses where you'd be running a 3PL business. Like those are the scale at which they support. Compared to Unleashed, for example, within the platform itself, it wouldn't support things such as multiple bin location for an item within the warehouse. That was one of the pain points that Bill faced as well. So that kind of led to a move to Cin7. Again, I'll let Bill speak more about it. But apart from it, there's also other things such as forecasting. So Cin7, as well as Unleash, has native forecasting models built into the platform. And we do it based on weighted average, moving average, statistical methods that have always been there. And this has been available with both Cin7 and Unleashed. But we did feel there was a need in the market to have like a dedicated forecasting tool. So one of the forecasting tools that played really well with Cin7 and helped a lot of our customers was Inventuro. So we acquired Inventuro. So Inventuro is now branded as Cin7 Foresight AI. So that's where we get the 24-month predictive algorithm that comes up with. And it's based on machine learning and AI prediction of what's going to happen in future. And the way it predicts it as well is going to be pretty smart because it's not looking at purely historic data to decide what's going to be needed in future. It takes into consideration things like stock out periods. So if a product was supposed to be available for an entire season, we've got it available only for a month. and it's sold out completely. So the next year, when it comes around to reorder the item, it's going to take that into consideration. Like, okay, this product we could have sold more if we had it, and that it identifies those opportunities. It'll also identify opportunities where it can maximize your working capital. So in other words, it's going to point out dead stock, inventory that's not moving so well. It'll point out areas where we can improve, kind of classify inventory into three different categories: which ones are winners, which ones are doing well, which ones are sort of loss leaders, and sort of falling under the dead stock area. So all of those are really beneficial features for our customers and problems that they face, and those are areas we are focused in. Obviously, we do have a warehouse management app that's available that kind of helps you with picking, packing, receiving inventory in, writing off inventory, looking up inventory in the warehouse, even delivery scheduling, proof of delivery. So it supports quite a wide range of functions other than purely just fulfilling the order alone. Now, getting into the purchasing side of things as part of the workflow, you would see again, like both are going to be supporting purchase order creation, supplier tracking, basic FIFO COGS calculation is supported. Now, if you need additional COGS methodologies, such as like first expiry, first out, or even in a case-by-case basis where you have batch numbers and serial numbers, there might be different values at which inventory was received due to variable landed cost. Landed cost can be reported separately within Cin7 in terms of what we paid for the product, what is the cost of freight, what is the cost of tariffs if it applies in this market. So you'd be able to report them separately within Cin7. You'd be able to look at historic valuation over a period of time, what products used to cost, landed 6 months ago compared to what it costs right now. You'll still have visibility to average costing. You'll have pricing up methodologies that's there. So it gives you more tools that are going to be available for future needs. So things that are probably not coming up to your mind first thing when you're looking for a new software, but these are usually trouble or problems that are going to be faced by a business at a later stage after you started using a software on a daily basis. And yeah, I wanted to mention about IDR, which is you import a PDF file and it'll go ahead and create it as a purchase order in your system. So like small little things such as this to kind of make the everyday use of the software easier, take away manual data entry, and also give you flexibility. Like we are all human, so we're going to be making mistakes. So we might want to roll back transactions. So those are small little things that again is going to be trouble when you're using Unleashed as a solution. If you've got a transaction, it's invoiced, it's sent over to zero, you can't go ahead and make changes, roll back. You'll need to clone it, duplicate it, and go through the process. So small little things such as those are going to be helpful to have a software that's more forgiving, more flexible, and more configurable for the end users. So again, that comes on with the value that Cin7 brings in for users because it's always designed with solving these problems. And yeah, and again, if you have any questions, feel free to post them over here. Any more details we need in this, we'll kind of share with you guys as well. And in terms of fulfillment, so when we get to fulfillment, yeah, both can do sales order invoicing and basic fulfillment workflows. I say basic fulfillment workflows because there are unique things that you can do on Cin7, which would be things such as having one order but multiple fulfillments and invoicing them, consolidating or invoicing them each one at a time. I do have a question over here from someone, which is the Cin7 gives stock turns or inventory sales ratio on a monthly basis in reports. It does. So we do have inventory velocity reports. And in terms of stock turnover, you'd be looking at Inventuro for it or Foresight AI for it um, as part of this. So yeah, feel free to keep the questions coming through. That's really good. And production and manufacturing. So speaking about manufacturing, again, if we need product bundles and kits, now both softwares do it. Now, when we speak about advanced manufacturing, it is a world by itself. Um, but speaking about just the assembly and kits and bundles alone, like there's more that we can do with assembly kits and bundles. You might not want to allocate inventory to this is how many bundles we're going to be selling. We want to do it in a virtual way where we've got all of these items, we bundle and repackage them in multiple value-added packs for our customers to buy on the website. And we'll need to calculate availability real time based on the units available. So in other words, virtual stock calculation. Those are things that Cin7 does. So you don't need to pre-commit inventory to bundles or kits. Now, speaking of bundles or kits, again, you would want to pick them and fulfill them on the warehouse management. That's another thing that the advanced WMS does on Cin7. You can pick for bundles and kits. It'll tell you that a customer has purchased this bundle, but you got to pick products XYZ to go ahead and fulfill it. So those are things again we'll support. And when it comes on advanced manufacturing, that's where Cin7 Core becomes an extremely powerful software. It looks into things such as capacity planning, production scheduler. It'll tell you when an order needs to be planned. It'll tell you when you're planning an order, if you're running out of materials. Are you going to be having enough capacity in terms of users, man hours available, or machines that are going to be needed? Like it looks into all of these put together as a simplifying process where instead of users manually cross-checking the process, it speaks back to each other and it helps you go through the process. And yeah, this is where I want to give a shout out to Greg on call as well. Greg does an excellent job with regards to Greg and TechWeave and our partner network. They do an excellent job with consulting with clients. We do realize that advanced manufacturing, it's better for someone to be on site to help you. So we always recommend going through a partner implementation when you're thinking about advanced manufacturing process as well. And yeah, Greg, if you had anything to add over there
Oh,
with
I just
advanced manufacturing, feel free to jump in.
No, just one thing that we've been quite excited about the last little while is we've done a couple of manufacturing implementations using the co-manufacturing function, which is kind of a cool little hybrid between quite basic manufacturing and raising purchase orders out to sort of a third-party manufacturer. But in the background, it does all of the things that Sham's just mentioned. So you don't need to have that complicated, or I mean, people who do manufacturing, they're a different breed. It's really can be quite complicated at times, and need somebody who really understands what's happening within the system. Whereas, yeah, we've done some co-manufacturing implementations just recently, and it just works really well. And it's quite simple to use, and allows you to have sort of, and I suppose in a co-manufacturing sense, that means you own the raw materials, whereas a third party is going to make it. So we see a lot of businesses that have that, and it's not often talked about. So, but for the rest of it, yeah, the advanced manufacturing on platform we've been working with for quite a long while, across various industries from fashion and to pure manufacturing businesses, and yeah, it's amazing having my background come from the larger end of town in ERP land, to have a system and tool that does the large majority of what you require in a reasonably simple way, despite it being somewhat complicated as a process, is amazing. And it's one of the main reasons that I really love Cin7 Core. So yeah, that's my little shout out.
Thanks, Greg. So yeah, the last thing over here is automation, integration, and security. So quite often when we speak about solutions, we speak about automation. So automations is always marketed with integrations, accounting solutions, e-commerce solutions. But there is another level of automation that we can configure, and that'll be programmable automations within the system. So Sun7 has an automation engine, and to which we can build logics based on triggers and actions within the system to either go ahead and complete an action altogether. So these would be like repeatable tasks that people are just clicking through on a daily basis as part of the job. So we could automate it, give more time back to your team. They'll be able to they'll be able to add value in different ways other than just manually clicking through things that need to be done. There's also areas where we can set up notifications based on a list of triggers within the system. So that could send out an email to you. It can send out a report that's getting scheduled. It could send a notification within the platform itself when something needs an action or someone needs to look into it. And yeah, finally, when speaking about security, we do have a granular user access. At the same time, it also has a very detailed audit log. So it tells anytime, it has complete track in terms of when are users logging in, where are they logging in from, and if transactions are being changed, who is changing them, what are the changes. It gives you a lot of details around it. And yeah, that's again something I wanted to speak to. We do have a question over here. So does Cin7 offer budget setting process looking at the next financial year? Budgets can be added on to Cin7. So there is one of the solutions where we have budget forecasting that can be added into Cin7. And yeah, we would definitely be able to kind of get more details into it, Ben. The questions from Ben. So we'll set some time with you to kind of take you through it as well. Cool. That's yeah, that's all from me
But
on this slide. Anything from you, Greg?
Yeah, just the I suppose both systems obviously connect to either QuickBooks or Xero. One thing I'm really when I first started using Cin7 a couple of years ago, uh, was really the way that the accounting method and the way that from an accountant, it was the logic of the accounting framework within Cin7 works is really good. I really love it. Again, I think both systems allow you to do obviously those connections, but to be able to do sort of inventory accrual type things where you're managing goods receipt on invoice, you're managing stock in transit, all those kinds of things. It's fundamentally just one of, I've got a lot of favorite things about Cin7 Core, but as an accountant, seeing the ability to have those accounting transactions happen and flow through to Xero or QuickBooks quite logically is really one of my favorite pieces of it. So yeah, I think the only other call out from an inventory management perspective and the purchasing that you mentioned earlier is, when you were speaking, I was sort of just sitting here dwelling on, well, if I was in that sort of early phase or in that startup phase in that early persona that we talked about before, it unleashes it will fit the bill. It does a great job at a lot of those things. I think the call out from us is, again, is that plan for where you're going to be maybe as much as you are now. And if you start to consider where you think you're taking your business on that journey, and starting to think about what's coming, as well as those businesses that are in that middle ground that need those exclusive features that Sham's covered, really it makes sense, a lot of sense, even after you said all of that, Shams, that using this sort of table to do a review is really important, but Cin7 Core comes out on top for a lot of reasons. Again, not to say that if you have a small business that has those basic feature needs, Unleash will do a great job as well. Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. So
Yeah, cool.
yes. So to kind of sum it up, I'll speak about where Unleashed is good. So Unleashed is obviously good when if it is a small business, it's less complex operations, and we're looking to replace a spreadsheet. We need a system in place that's going to be cloud compatible, accessible from everywhere. So those are areas where Unleashed is going to be good. As your business starts growing, that's when Cin7 becomes more relevant, and I'll kind of let Greg speak to it as well.
Yeah. So yeah, clearly we've sort of covered that a few times so far, but designing for growth is really, really key here. I mean, obviously we're a partner of Cin7, but we see a lot of success, a lot more success when companies use the partner network to deliver, because we have experience in the real world as much as from a TechWeave perspective. Our team has a lot of experience managing businesses all the way from very small to very, very large businesses with really complex outcomes. So tap into that network is my advice, particularly if you're making a consideration of what platform to use. One thing we do at TechWeave is quite a detailed discovery process where we map out all of the processes that, within reason, what Sham sort of covered in the previous slide. So having that document to be able to make a really good assessment is clearly what businesses really that we see need to make the right decision. I think again, Cin7 has a really great opportunity, great integrations with platforms, inbound sales from all of the ecom platforms. Things like having a B2B portal or whatever it is are all available within Cin7. And I think, the key thing is, looking at ways of reducing the touch points for people and the workarounds and the manual interventions and the spreadsheets. One thing we really try and work on at TechWeave is to get people using the system and get them on platform, and stop creating workarounds. If you have a reporting deck at the end of your month end or a performance report on sales, make sure your master data is right. Make sure the data's right and it's reportable straight out of the system, so you don't have to manipulate things. Lean into using the on-platform tools as much as possible. And I suppose the last call out again is sort of reflecting back on that great void is pick a solution that allows you to scale. And I talk about this quite often that we had a couple of months, like 2 months ago, we had 3 businesses go live. with Cin7 Core. Very different businesses, one a listed entity, a listed group, all the way down to just a simple retail store and online store. And you'd say 70 or 80% of the processes that they all have are very much the same. And they're in very different places within that growth scale, or where they are in the market. So tapping into that and establishing those processes and those systems early, and making sure you maintain them and try and keep everybody on platform, is really where Cin7 Core thrives. And so, yeah, allow yourself to scale, allowing Cin7 Core to grow with your business, and kind of keep accountable to your team to make sure that they're following some of that rigor as you grow. Will only pay absolute benefit and dividends to your business. So yeah, I think that's cool.
I'm going to take over from the two of you now, and we're going to talk to Bill. Bill, your time has come. You've been very patient, and I appreciate that.
All good.
So, Bill, can you just share with everybody again what your experience is and how you're associated with Cin7?
Yep. So I manage the inventory and the stock in our company. And so we started using Cin7 around March this year. And prior to Cin7, we used Unleashed. So we're fairly familiar with both systems. And one thing that ultimately led us to change to Cin7 was the flexibility of the system. So it's, from a user interface perspective, it's fairly friendly. So it doesn't matter if you're very tech savvy or slightly less tech savvy. Everyone had a decent time getting on board and learning how to use the features. The flexibility aspect was really important because Cin7 allows us a rollback feature. So if something isn't done incorrectly, say a purchase order is raised to a different supplier, or if a sales order is raised to a different customer, or if customer wants to change certain details with their order, it's fairly straightforward. There's an undo button. We press it, rewinds, and we can try again. This helped us a lot, not even just from an operational perspective, but also just being not afraid to try things and click things in case something goes wrong. We can roll it back and try it again. In terms of using Cin7, another feature that really helped us greatly was the multi-bin location aspect. So our business, we have multiple warehouses, and within each warehouse, we have multiple bin locations to store our products. Most of our products are stored in different areas of the warehouse as well. Being able to have this detail is a great help for our warehouse picking team. So pick list comes out, they know exactly where to go, how many of a certain item to get. They don't have to rely on memory, which is something we had to do when we were on Unleashed, and which memory, it can fail sometimes and it can cause issues. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really helpful. I think you talked a lot about maybe what wasn't going right, but is now with Cin7, you have some functions that really work for you. I wonder if you could hit on this. We talked about this a little bit the other day, so I'd love to hear it if you have any other opinion on it. Can you give for the group that's watching today, maybe they're considering Cin7 versus Unleashed, what's the advice you would give them in considering between the two?
I would say Cin7, in a sense, it's really good for your business if you're sort of you're not a small mom and pop shop, but you're also not looking for something like NetSuite, which is something we've also used before as well. So this is the words of one of my colleagues before. So NetSuite is like a Ferrari, a very fancy car, and then sometimes you don't need all the features just to drive to the shops. So something like Cin7, which is you get 90% of the features, but it's very more cost effective. So it's very good.
Good. And then can you talk about, you hit on this, but can you just narrow down a little bit more how Unleashed you guys decided wasn't the right fit for you?
It was, in a sense, so it was less flexible. It was a bit more unforgiving. So usage-wise, we had to be very careful. So something goes wrong, there's no ability to roll back. And in terms of so we use Xero for our accounting software as well. The integration between Unleashed and Xero was one way. So Unleashed could push data into Zero, but Zero didn't necessarily always push data back into Unleashed, which caused discrepancies. So during reporting periods, we would, have discrepancies and then had to spend extra time and effort to figure out where those discrepancies came from. Yeah.
That's great. Is there anything else that you think someone should know as they, and you kind of touched on this with the advice, but any last pieces of advice or thoughts that you would have as someone is deciding on an IMS like Cin7 or Unleashed?
Oh, that's a good question. I'd say just give it a go. I think so far we're all very happy with it. Pretty much all the departments, inventory side, we're happy. Our finance team, they're very happy as well with the reporting features and everything. Our leadership is very happy. So yeah.
So it sounds like, and I guess I'm biased because I work for Cin7, but it does sound like it's solving a lot of problems that you maybe had before and hopefully aren't experiencing so much any longer. Is that fair?
Yes, that's a fair assessment. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Bill. If any of you have questions for Bill, I think it would be great if you wanted to send them in. This is someone who has really seen NetSuite Unleashed and now Cin7, so he might be a good expert to talk to. But Bill, thank you so much for sharing your story with us. All right, Greg, I think you're going to wrap this up for us before we hit into any other last questions.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. So I think we've covered a few of these points so far already, but if you're clearly looking to consider where you are and what the next move is in your journey to select an IMS or select something in that ERP Lite world, I think the key things here is really take a moment to pause and think about what you're doing and where your team is spending their time. Assess your current processes and see how manual they are, how much data entry you're doing. Are you meeting your demand? I mean, I think that the most important thing in this space that we're talking about is keeping the customer expectations and keep hitting the mark when it comes to delivering to your customer base. So the opportunity to invest and taking the opportunity to invest, don't just try and meet the now requirement, but invest in the next stage. And that operational excellence is really what I mean by that, or what we mean by that is take a moment to try and find what those best practices are and leverage them and start embedding them into your culture. So it's very easy to just always have people do what they've always done. And change is hard. And we hear it all the time. I was at a client yesterday who said, it's going to be tough. Our team is really, really committed to doing the things they do now. And we need to, and part of my role and what we do at TechWeave is we spend a lot of time on site as much as we can to actually get to know people and take them through that change and invest in the change for the positive. So setting those improved practices and those improved processes and using as much as we possibly can what's on platform. The other thing is to talk about a business framework that allows so get everybody on the same page. So provide information or provide a framework that allows everybody to understand what they're doing now and what they're going to be doing, and take them on the journey with you. Make sure everybody's clear about their responsibilities and outcomes. Don't just implement systems and then all of a sudden land them with new tasks and responsibilities. It's really key to take people on the journey with you in your team, obviously depending on the size of your business. Consider where your greatest costs are and focus on those. So if you need to hold a lot of inventory, it's really important to maximize your ability to manage that inventory and find the right solution for that. And Cin7 Core does an amazing job at allowing you to use all the tools on platform to understand where you are in terms of your inbound purchasing and when things are going to land, being able to put the right costings on that inventory, and understand your margin management by creating sales price tiers. And the calculated price tiers are really cool. Been spending a bit of time working on those recently. You want to make sure that you're using tools to not overstock, because then your capital is caught up in that inventory. So it's really important to use as many of those tools and embed them into your business as possible. Make sure your team is using those tools and check in with them on that as you go through that journey. And then focus on getting the fundamentals right is at the end, right? So when we talk about landing the implementation, we talk about what do we need to do to set like a new cornerstone or a new framework or a new structure that's going to hold the business up. We don't try and overinvest in all the new bells and whistles when we start a project. We really want to get that initial framework right and getting people to use the core functionality of Cin7 Core as much as possible. And then what we tend to do is then, and I suppose the reason for that is because we don't want people to bite off more than they can chew when you do that initial change. But soon after, when the business is ready, and we say it can be a week, it can be months. It's going to be up to each individual business. But start taking advantage of what the on-platform tools like Foresight AI. We're big advocates of MRP. So MRP, Materials Resource Planning on platform, is a great engine to start automating some really systematic things around replenishment and purchasing as well. So there's various tools on platform that can help you to move forward, and not an automation for the sake of automation is not what I'm talking about. It's about getting the best value for money to make sure that you're using your capital invested in your business the most appropriate way, and reducing the risk is a really important thing that accountants like to talk about. So Cin7 Core gives you those tools. And yeah, as you consider the journey that you're on, as we sort of wrap up that sort of thought is, take a moment in time, listen to or engage with experts that can look at your business from the outside in. Is really something that we love to do, and help and get them to sort of guide you and walk you through that process, and focus on improving your systems as you go forward. So yeah, there's a framework here that is really important as you make selections on where you're going next with your tech stack. Yeah. Thanks, Lauren. Hopefully that's okay.
That was great, Greg, and I think that was a great summary of what we've talked about today. We did have some questions come in. I know that some of you have specific questions. Maybe you're already a Cin7 customer and you want to talk to a member of our team. We're happy to reach out to you following this. We did have a question about a demo, if that's helpful to learn more about Cin7. The answer is absolutely yes. We do have group demos, but I think the best experience for you is likely to be to speak to a member of our team. So you can ask every question that you might have, and they can answer it as it's specific to your company and your business. We will follow up with all of you after the webinar today with a recording of this, and also you can respond to that email. You'll be directly emailing with me, and I can connect you to anybody on our team who I think might be beneficial for you to speak with. I'm also going to connect you with Greg and his team at TechWeave. So that's important to note. Before we wrap up, are there any last questions that can come through the chat? Going once, twice. All right. Well, thank you all so much. It was really great to be able to spend some time with all of you and to share about Cin7 versus Unleashed, and hopefully get you in the mindset of growth and what that looks like with Cin7. So thank you so much for your time. Bill, thank you again for sharing your story. Greg, Sham, thank you so much for sharing everything you did. And if anyone has questions, you can always reach out to us. We're happy to help. But thanks everybody so much.
Thanks, everyone.